I can count on one hand the number of times I've driven in the last 5 years, but I take my driver's license everywhere. And for many of us, our license is the most important document we carry every day. It's not just proof of your identity, but also a symbol of your home country or state. So my initial idea for this video was to compare driver's license designs across all 50 US states. But looking deeper into it, while there were a few standouts, the vast majority of designs ranged from mediocre to plain bad. And by bad, I don't just mean visually unappealing, but also difficult to read. So instead, in this video, I want to unpack why. We'll look at how designers emphasize the most important details in a layout to make complex information digestible, and how it can be used to improve driver's license design, while taking inspiration from an unexpected place. So let's dive in. It's no accident that all these licenses look so similar. For all US and Canadian licenses, there is a shared design standard, a template established by the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, which I'm just going to refer to as AMVA in this video. That standard is itself based on a framework set by the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO. These standards are written by committees within these organizations, and let's be honest, there's a reason why design by committee isn't exactly a famous compliment. No one's ever gushed over a design and thought, "Oh, I bet this was designed by a committee."
Not a chance.
Now, that isn't to say that this approach is invalid, it's just that they have a different focus. These committees are mostly focused on document security, and so are composed of experts that reflect that security focus. Driver's licenses use security features like holograms, ultraviolet printing, microprinting, even RFID chips. But that isn't the focus of this video. Instead, I'm here to critique the layout from a design perspective. But before we dig in, just as all these security features are used to keep your physical ID safe, keeping your personal information secure online can be a major hassle. But thankfully, it can be a lot easier than you think with today's sponsor, Incogni. Every year, we're seeing an alarming rise in global data breaches and identity theft, with a whopping 40% increase from 2021 to 2022. Commercial databases and people search sites have our names, social security numbers, logins, addresses, location histories, and a lot more. All this is up for grabs for a price by businesses, and even more worryingly, can fall into the hands of criminals. Now, a couple of years ago, I bought some winter boots online, but months later, after moving to a new address, I began getting sales catalogs from the boot company, which was irritating, but what was creepy was that I never gave my new address to this company.
It never happened.
I didn't know it then, but it's obvious now that a data broker likely sold my information without my consent. Here's where Incogni comes in. Acting on your behalf, they reach out to data brokers requesting the removal of your personal data and handling any hiccups along the way. They stay vigilant, conducting regular removal requests to ensure your data stays off the market whenever new records pop up. With their yearly subscription, you can rest easy knowing that Incogni is protecting your data privacy continuously, and it's all automated. I've teamed up with Incogni to give the first 100 people who use my code Linus at sign up a 60% discount off their subscription. So secure your personal data today with Incogni by clicking the link below this video. Thank you, Incogni. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the AMVA design standard and what it says regarding graphic design. The most relevant section here specifies a 3-zone layout for the front of the ID, with each zone containing specific information. Zone 1 at the top of the document must indicate the type of document and the authority that issued it. Zone 2 contains the vast majority of data, including your personal information, dates of issue and expiry, vehicle restrictions, and other information such as organ donor status. Zone 3 must include your portrait and signature. I don't really have a problem with Zone 1 and 3, but my issue with Zone 2 is that it clusters various kinds of information together without setting a specific order, which often leads to an undifferentiated wall of text that's ugly and hard to read. Let's imagine you're working behind a busy bar at a live concert. You're responsible for serving only customers over 21, but you're getting IDs from all over the US. In the few seconds someone might flash their card at you, try to pick the date of birth from these 3 licenses. Not as easy as it looks, right? Combine that with the less than ideal lighting conditions, the stress of people waiting in line and having to do math in your head, and the layout of these licenses isn't making your life any easier. Now, most states have moved to vertical licenses for people under 21,
We got you.
but beyond age verification, that doesn't really fix the larger underlying problem. What's lacking is a clear hierarchy of information, which is sometimes called visual hierarchy. You can think of it as similar to journalism's inverted pyramid. Just as a news story needs to open with the key facts, who, what, where, when, why, and how, designers use hierarchy of information to guide the viewer's eye to the most important information first, using size, placement, color, white space, and other design principles. So, for example, the poster for our concert should draw your eye to the headlining band first, not the ticket price or the drinks offer. The challenge for driver's licenses is twofold. One is the pocket size of the layout and how much information we have to cram in there. And secondly, the varied needs of different audiences for a single document. And here's where I think we can learn a thing or two from. Trading card games have 2 important audiences, players and collectors. Each has information that is most important to them. For example, in the Pokemon trading card game, each card is also broken down into zones. The top half of the card provides information about the Pokemon, and the bottom half gives information on the abilities, attacks, and additional game mechanics for players. At the very base of the card, down in the margin, we have extra information including the card's number in that series and the card's rarity indicator, more important to collectors. But this principle is hardly unique to Pokemon. Trading card games across genres, as well as sports trading cards, use visual hierarchy to make dense information quickly digestible once you understand the system, especially with complex game mechanics or player statistics that need to fit into such a tight space. So how can we take these principles and apply them to a driver's license? Creating any effective design begins with understanding our audiences. Luckily, AMVA have published this design principles and guidelines document, which breaks down the key stakeholders. Of course, we have the issuing authority, the government body responsible for issuing the license. For them, the license is not only important for record keeping, but also as a projection of the municipal brand. Then we have first-tier stakeholders, including law and traffic enforcement, medical first responders, airport and transport security, and car rental agencies. After that, a range of secondary stakeholders might need to verify your identity for an application, like financial or government institutions, hospitals, schools, or employers. Lastly, we have a wide range of commercial interactions where identity or age verification is needed, ranging from pharmacists to bartenders. Different data points these various stakeholders might want from your license can fit into 3 categories. First, driving details. This includes your license number, class, issue and expiry dates, and any noted restrictions. Only a few stakeholders on this list actually need these, but in those cases, it's generally an interaction with some consequences, so that's fairly important. Then we have identity basics. Almost everyone is going to need what you look like, your name and age. And finally, only some will want the additional details, like your address, height, veteran status, etc. But not necessarily all of them, and different ones depending on the stakeholder. So this gives us a clear order of importance for us to use as the basis for our visual hierarchy. Alright, so time to put it into practice. I'm going to use South Carolina's current license design as the starting point, and just for kicks, it's going to be for none other than Ash Ketchum, the original Pokemon master. Zone 2 on this card is essentially just one difficult to read wall of text. First, it's not a good idea to set everything in bold. Bold is supposed to emphasize. All caps makes it harder to distinguish letter shapes, especially when there's very little space between lines, and Arial is not designed for legibility at small sizes. See how the driving, basic, and extra details we previously discussed are all split up in a jumbled order? Because it exemplifies a lot of the problems we find across different designs. To address these issues, let's delete this duplicate date of birth, which only adds to the visual clutter, and this document discriminator number. This is such a niche administrative data point that it should really be relegated to the back of the card. Improving legibility is crucial, so we'll replace the all-cap format with sentence case and choose appropriate fonts. Now, since this license will be for the fictional Kanto region from Pokemon, I've used Shin-Go, a popular sans serif font from Japan used in many Nintendo games for some of the key info, while Intel One Mono, a new font designed specifically for coders with low vision, will both neatly align the numbers and help differentiate secondary text. This should greatly improve readability, making it easier to process the information. Now we'll reorganize the layout into 3 distinct subzones. Driving details will be placed at the top in blue to set them apart from other information. The expiry date is a much more valuable piece of information than the issue date for most stakeholders, so I've literally highlighted the former and faded back the latter. Moving down, the identity basics, name and age, align with the eye line of the portrait, since eyes are a natural focal point when people look at faces. I've also increased the type size to improve quick identification. Finally, other identity details will occupy the lower portion of the card. To reduce visual noise, we'll use a tint of grey instead of black. By removing excess text labels and retaining only mandatory number references, which can be deciphered with a key on the reverse of the card, we'll create more white space, allowing the text to breathe and improving legibility further. Special organ donor and veteran indicators will be placed at the base of the card in blue, balancing the layout and making them easy to find. Of course, adding security holograms and microprinting will further enhance the license's integrity and protect against counterfeiting. Comparing the before and after, it's clear to see how much easier the redesigned license is to understand at a glance. Now, this design is just for fun and only a starting point. Of course, real-world implementations involve numerous revisions and logistical restrictions and compromises, but I hope it highlights the value of thinking about how typography and layout can be used to improve user experience for all stakeholders. By embracing the concept of hierarchy of information, we can design driver's licenses that help guide the viewer's eye to the most crucial details. And ultimately, a well-designed license can make a huge number of everyday interactions just that little bit smoother. Big thanks as always to my supporters on Patreon who make these videos possible. And if you would like to see me tear into another subpar design, I did a teardown a few years ago on the in-flight safety card from Ryanair, which you can give a watch over here. My name is Linus, thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you in a future video.